Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. I'm your host, Sarah Parker, and today's voice is a very long-standing friend from my hometown, guys, Bognor Regis. Jon Evans joins us today. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
So we actually did a podcast, and this is a little story and a snippet for you, Jon. So when we did our last podcast, it was around 3 years ago. So I'll put the episode details in the description of this one if people want to listen back. But it's so funny because I thought back to it. I was actually about 2 weeks after a prep and a season, and right now I'm 2 weeks post a mini cut. So you always catch me when I'm dieted down. I love it because it's like you have, as bodybuilders, I'm sure you can understand, it's like you have these sort of phases and timestamps in your mind, much like with life, right? There's certain things that are memorable for dates and stuff like that. And I was tracking back and I was like, I love that. And a bit of context for the listeners before we dig in today, Jon. So actually for yourself. And I love that I can bring you to this podcast because, of course, you're a mindset coach, as it were, mental fitness guide and speaker. And, when we look at bodybuilding, it's like, oh, we're these ruthless people. We can keep going. And it's so important to me to bring people like yourself that open the peripheral of essentially mindset and mental health. And this is the context, Jon, yourself, you've been through a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we'll touch on some of it today. And both of us, we're not here being martyrs and saying you should do this, and we haven't been through things that some of the listeners might have. And if you look at Jon's Instagram, if you look at his Facebook, genuinely, every post I see of yours, it puts a smile on my face, and I can't express enough the joy that it brings to know someone like you. Every time I see you, you have that smile on your face. I call you Smiley John, me and Matt do. And the thing is, you're here, but you've been through some really hard, tough times in life, but yet you're able to bring yourself to this point from being there and see that light, see that hope. And this is what I want to bring to the podcast because there's going to be people listening that are in darkness, Jon, as we know. And it's really, really hard in a bodybuilding space because, as I say, you think that you're indestructible. You don't want to admit that sometimes we can have a little bit of help, guys, and we could talk to people that resonate, right? Like and Jon, I'm sure you'd agree, I've had therapy in the past. And I sit there and I think, you can't resonate with me. And automatically the guard is up. And I'm just going to be honest there because I feel like, well, you haven't been through what I've been through. And that helps. I'm sure you'd agree.
It's yeah, I think the most important thing is to know that again, everyone's journey is going to be different. Everyone's journey is going to be unique, but what a tough moment, like everyone's whole is different, right? And we paint it a different color, we view it differently. But when people say like I've hit rock bottom, we have to acknowledge it is that's their rock bottom, that's not our rock bottom. So, but if we've been in a place of rock bottom, we know that feeling. And I see sometimes, it's why I went off and did coaching as opposed to therapy. I've gone therapy myself, and because I wanted to experience it, I wanted to know what it was like, but it's very different. And the biggest part, and maybe for the listeners as well, is viewing your toughest moments to know that they are really tough for you because you've acknowledged that. But it's also important to realize that someone's tough moment may actually be someone's like best moment in their week. Someone's like, oh my God, I went to the gym once today. Or like, I went to the gym once this week. And you're like, wow, I haven't been this month.
Mm.
And they're beating themselves up because they haven't been to the gym 5 times, 6 times, right? It's again, social media plays a huge part of that as well. We see everyone's highlight reels, that's some things as well. And I think it's important just for us to acknowledge those moments too. Um, and yeah, that's how I view it. I view it as like people are going to have a rock bottom moment. People are going to have a tough moment. They're going to be in the shit. Pardon my French, but I think it's important to view it and acknowledge yourself through that as well, and to see where you're at and meet them where they're at, because all they need to feel is heard, seen, and understood, right? And if there moments I was going through a really, really tough time, I just want to feel seen. I just want to feel heard. You know, I'm not, you don't need to know that I don't need you to be in the moment that I've been in, but I need to feel like I'm being seen or heard for something.
Mm,
And that's the, the power of, I think, podcasts, but also the power of listening, right?
yeah.
Is, it's important, especially for a bodybuilding comp, right? You're in your head probably all the time, not
Yeah.
only because of that, but because of you've got so many other things you've got to do, and then you've got this competition, but also it's like I've got to do this again. I know what the prep's like. I know the tough time. I know where I've got to get myself to. So there is going to be demons in your head, but I can't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But I can acknowledge that I've probably had demons in my head,
Mm, mm,
and
mm.
it's sitting onto that. So that would be my view on it.
Yeah, yeah. This is why the podcast is called Beyond Condition because when I was sort of looking at the name and what could that symbolize? What could I bring to the bodybuilding space? And for quite some time it was like, what's the right name? And it truly is Beyond Condition and a really nice example of what you said there to be seen. And I literally released a pod, not long ago talking about going through a preparation. And actually, when you go through those times, it's like people attribute you to be a hard worker. You're successful because you can get lean. Now, what happens there is that people will often oversight that you're a human being as well. And, what's your name? Where have you come from? What's your story? It's like you look insane. And I had a conversation, and this is what I shared on a podcast with someone that listens to the pod now. And I said to her, I want to compliment your physique because it's very aspirational to me. I really like your physique, but I want to say, you're a person behind that. What's your name? Can we have a chat about your journey? And that was super important to me. And it really, it touched her because she was like, it was really nice to be acknowledged as a person aside from a physique. But we get so tunnel vision on that physique outcome. And like, one of the topics today is internal self-talk. It's actually quite hard, John, to actualize what your internal self-talk is. And one of my favorite phrases is, you are the loudest voice in any room in your mind. And it's that actualization, but then, it has to go, in my mind, there needs to go past the acknowledgement to actually take action as to how you do talk to yourself if you feel it is detrimental. But, and you might be able to give some context here, as a bodybuilder, as you've said, there's so much to do in a day. You're in a preparation, there's so much to do. Where's the time to work on these things, right? That's what we tell ourselves. It absolutely is. And that can go for life as well. I'm sure you'd agree.
100%. And I think, in those moments, we can definitely speak about, how we understand our internal dialogue. And I think it's the easiest, I'm not going to say it's the easiest way because it's still hard, but the simplest way to do it is to, whenever you do catch yourself, is to name it. Because more times than not, we are saying something over time, over time, over time, over time, but we are not truly understanding that that's about us. We're just saying it. And then people are like, oh, it was just brush it, and we brush it off. So we don't give it importance. But actually, just because in that present moment you haven't given it importance does not mean that decades before you have given it importance, right? So you saying, oh, I missed out, just I forget about this and forget about that. You are now not backing yourself. You're not giving yourself strength. You're not giving yourself a chance to actually believe in yourself. And it's those little snippets of inner dialogue. And I learned this incredible, I always muck up his surname, but Trevor Moward was an NFL coach, right? And unfortunately, he has passed. He got cancer through um, COVID. But when I read all his books and I started learning so much about it, his dad was a positive thinker, right? His dad was literally the man in America who would go to positive thinking. You go to my dad, right? And he's like, Dad, but you just can't always be positive. You just can't. And if you want to know my secret, Sarah's saying like, John, I'm this positive person. Like, I'm not positive in a sense of what people think you need to be positive. because I have tough moments, I have challenges, I have rock bottom, I have moments that I am not appreciative of myself. And I know it always starts with that inner dialogue, which then leads me to sabotage myself, which then leads me to not be able to achieve what I want to achieve because of the belief within myself. I've got no certainty, I've got no confidence, I've got no charisma. But when we view it, and this is what Trevor talks about, is neutral thinking. And I love it. So neutral thinking, imagine you've got imagine basketball, right? Everyone's playing basketball and then they're going up and they're taking their three pointer and they're missing it, right? And in a game, that's a miss, right? It's not the end of the game, it's not the final throw, it's just a miss. Now, what people were doing is he was seeing everyone when they start internalizing, not saying what their teammates would say to them or anything, because their teammates would be like, "Come on, guys, let's just keep going. Let's get the morale going." What are they telling themselves in their head? And they're going off and they're saying, "Do you know what? This is absolutely like terrible. That what I'm doing, I can't even make this 3 point. I've done this thousands of times in practice. I can't do it today. I just can't do it." Blah blah blah. What do? Their now self-esteem is down the toilet. They're
Yes.
not able to acknowledge who they are, so neutral thinking is just neutrally viewing yourself in that moment and not saying anything. And the power of that, what it does is imagine, like Sarah, let's associate this as bodybuilding. You're going up on stage, right? And I'm sure when you first started, you had probably a bit of a internal dialogue malfunction, right? Now think about it. What would be some words that you would say or that you would think, maybe you've had clients come to you and they say, like, do you know what, before a prep or while I'm in prep, I'm thinking about this. What are some of the lingo that they're saying in their mind?
I feel like a very common one is I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Literally as simple as that. It's like, and that seems like a very universal term, but as soon as you asked me that question, took me right back to 13 years ago, and it was, and a lot of social media here to play a part and what we deem as successful in the
Yeah.
bodybuilding space, but it was like, and also, correlating with that, I'm never gonna be good enough. I'm never gonna be these people that win shows, and it was a constant dialogue, and I then tried to reframe it initially right at the start as just stepping on that stage is enough for me right now. This is for me. This is for me to do that, but it was still there, on repeat.
It, right? So it's still there. And over time, over time and time and time, you're going to keep doing that. Now, the power of neutral thinking, what you do is you shut it off, you move on.
Mm,
And then over time, when you're before prep, during it, you're saying, "I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough." Yeah, you're now trying to lie to yourself to tell yourself that you are good enough because of the moment. And then tomorrow you're going to say, "I'm not good enough" again, right? Because then there's going to be a little bit of a low, right? You're
yeah.
putting your body to the extreme, right? There's going to be those moments. So the power of neutral thinking is not saying anything. And imagine if
Yeah.
you stood up there and all those times you said, "I'm not good enough, I'm good, not good enough, I'm doubtful, I'm never, this is never going to happen." All that time and you said nothing,
Mm,
you were already quitting. And
mm.
studies have shown that negativity is 7 times more powerful than positivity,
Yeah, I'm not
right?
surprised. Mm,
So the reason I win, and this is not to be arrogant or egotistical or anything like that, the reason I win is I don't give myself the negativity because I know how much that can bring me down. But
mm.
what I do is I remind myself to be neutral in those tough moments because I've trained myself. I've rewired my mind to be like, okay, now I'm not here being Mr. Perfect. A few months ago, I was in a shit place.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Now, why was that? Because there was a build up in an area of my life, in a compartment, in a door that I didn't close. And my therapist would always say, "John, you were so good at not closing doors, but all you ended up doing when you look behind, you just renamed the door. So you allowed it to be left open." Right. And I think that was a huge part of a journey in my life that I realized I never took full accountability and responsibility of closing that door. I thought I can rename it, I can just change it.
yeah.
The problem is you're now avoiding what you've actually been putting off.
Mm,
And when it comes down to that moments of self-talk in a dialogue, it is like if we are not catching ourselves, acknowledging what we are telling ourselves, again, naming it,
mm,
where are you able to improve,
mm,
right?
mm.
Because if you're doing a comp and you're doing a stand and you're making yourself, your dance, as I always think with people going up on stage and they do it, it's a dance, right? It's their way, it's their way. It's
Yeah.
a dance, right? It's an act, a performance, right? Of a way. But that performance has so much meaning to you.
Yes.
And it has way more meaning than it does than what the judges see. The
Ab
judges see, I got 12 contestants here or 500 contestants. I've got a view at knocking them down and tally. They're just seeing you as a tally,
absolutely.
right? And when you treat it as a dance, how can you show up differently? Well, what you're telling yourself. Because I guarantee you, when you're playing and having fun and you've got kids running around and you're doing your prep dance at home, you're probably laughing. You're probably trying to keep this serious face, but you're actually putting a smile on your face
Mm,
because you see the kids and you're enjoying it.
mm,
And when we look at that, we then start saying, okay, well, back then, how are you doing it differently then? Oh, I was just thinking of like a happy moment of like with the family or this or this or this. Or my kid's giggling, thinking, what is mum doing or what is dad doing? All those things, right? But when we look at it, it was what you were telling yourself,
mm,
right? So you can't change how the judge are going to perceive you. However, the energy you put on that stage or the energy you put for yourself throughout the prep is going to be fundamentally so much that is going to differentiate your chance to be incredible on that stage. And a lot of that comes down to what you tell yourself.
I love that.
Because otherwise you don't believe, you don't have that belief. And if you don't have that belief, you don't have that potential. If you don't have that potential, you're not going to take the action. If you're not going to have the action, you're not going to get the results you want. And then you're going to complain why you didn't get the results. And if I said to you, did you believe in yourself 2 weeks ago when you did that? They're like, no.
Mm,
Well, there
mm,
you go. It's the same cycle. If you don't believe in yourself, if your certainty isn't there, your potential is never going to be reached because you don't think it's possible.
mm, mm.
What about if we gave you that possibility?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm,
The only way to give you that possibility is one thing. It begins with awareness. Right? That's it. Because I could make you feel amazing in that moment.
mm,
I could make you feel amazing on this podcast. But that's me. That's nothing that you've done, which
mm.
means your time, energy, and effort that you are putting in before a prep, before a show, before life, right? This podcast isn't just about conditioning and looking great on stage, right? It's about change, it's about life, it's about how we view ourselves. And that is how we want to articulate it. Is what are the changes that you want to create? How do you want to view yourself differently? And the first step is coming down to awareness. So if you do not name what you need to nip in the bud, what is the worst things? And then think, okay, I'm just gonna no, not say that. Whenever I say it, boom, just be silent. Don't try and think, oh, I've got to think of another word. Nope, don't worry about that. Let no negativity raise your positivity. There you go. That's a good one.
Mm.
Okay.
What a
But
slogan.
but it's true, right? If you kind of reduce your negativity, you automatically are raising it. Because that number, if you're at 7,
Mm,
that means if you say it negative things 3 times, you're already at 21 before you've even woke up out of bed.
yeah,
But if you didn't say anything, you're at 0. So you're already winning.
yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty, I'll share that bit on there. But yeah, I could
No,
talk about it all day, but you know.
yeah, honestly, guys, that hits me, and I've worked a lot on my own mindset over the years, and as you know, it's something I want to talk about as much as possible, and even framing it like that, again, this is why it's so valuable to bring someone like yourself that can really appreciate bodybuilding, but you're sort of outside of it, but you can bring a different perspective. Again, when we're listening to a podcast, and when you're listening, guys, it's like this perspective is something that we can all even take snippets from and start to work on. And what I love as well is, what you've just described there. off the back of your own, where you're at right now and feeling almost like you can sort of relapse, as it were. And what I like about that, John, is that doing this over time, absolutely, you can get to points, right, where, and this will hit people, I'm sure it will, where things are going really well, but you're used to them not going well. So you can actually, and I often reference it depending on, who's listening and what I'm talking about, but you can sort of slip back into this sort of sabotage, victim mentality, however we want to frame that, because it's like, but I'm not feeling negative. Like this could be that you felt negative your whole life, John. You've gone from one thing to another, and it's like, this can't be real. And what I've learned is it can be real. However, shit can still hit the fan, and that's okay. But what you can do is utilize the tools like what you're describing there, John, is to bring the awareness in, and perhaps you get through these times a bit quicker. That to me is mindset evolution, part of that you're able to come back
Very,
quicker.
very much so, very much so. And it's that way you want to articulate it, right?
Hmm.
And I think it is like awareness is always the first step, but I've like the four A's: awareness, acknowledge, awareness, accept, allow, act, right? Because when people are in a tough moment, they go straight to strategy. They go straight to, I need to know how to do this. But it never is that because just like we said, your energy is everything, right? How someone speaks to you is so important. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. I could be talking about elephants, but the energy that I bring towards those elephants, that's what's important, right? So when you think about, oh yeah, but I'll just do it, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Yeah, but you're not, by you not believing in yourself, by you not having the certainty, you're not going to take the action that you know that you deserve to do. And this is where where you get people who raise above in the bodybuilding world in life. How are they able to overcome those challenges? Because they know they can get themselves through it, because they've accepted that they are in a shit moment. They
Mm.
are in a tough moment.
Yeah.
They are challenged in the situation that they're in. But if we do not accept where we are, it's really hard to move forward because then you're always looking back. And this is where the self sabotage comes in.
Yeah.
Because then you start sabotaging all of it because then you think, I told you so. But then that comes then back to your inner dialogue.
Yeah.
And because you haven't accepted that your inner dialogue is not as healthy as you want it to be, that's the changes, right? Anyone who wants to, you know, take care of their diet, right? It's like, okay, we need to be aware of what you're eating, right? And the amount of calories that you're consuming. Well, guess what? If you are not going to tell me that, and you're not going to tell yourself that,
Mm.
it doesn't matter the actions I'm going to tell you, you're going to fall back
Yeah.
because you haven't taken full responsibility.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. And then you're going to go in there, you're going to order whatever you need to, and then you're going to be telling yourself, see, I just can't sustain this.
Yeah.
But it's never the sustainability because you only sustain what you repeat, right?
Mm. Mm.
And you are sustaining, you're being bloody consistent. But the
Yeah.
problem is the consistency that you're leading with is not leading you to the result that you want,
Mm.
right? But because of the belief within yourself, that is always leading you to that. And that's how self-sabotage comes in. Self-sabotage comes in that you've done great. I don't want to do any more because it could all go wrong.
Yes. Love that
So I'll
framing.
just sit in this moment. But what is that actually providing you?
Mm.
Like, what is that actually offering you?
Mm.
Is nothing because all it's doing is allowing you to spend more time in the past than is in the present. And I can guarantee you, at any moment of your life, if you pick the happiest moment in your life, it's because you were truly in the present.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It wasn't, oh, do you know what? 10 years ago, yeah, so I was on this podcast and I was like so happy because I was thinking about 10 years ago. That's never the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's acknowledging those moments and being aware of it as well. That's what's important.
Mm. Mm. I
And
feel
then
like
accept.
in the bodybuilding space, it made me think of, because you said 10 years ago, and funnily enough, it's, 10 or so years ago. I remember winning my first show, and you talk about being seen, and you mentioned that earlier. And I think that this can be something we could relate to, the belief and where that can come from. I didn't used to tell people I competed. I'd, do the work and I'd want to be this underdog. And when I won my first show, all of those preps previous, years of not placing, not on the frame of it, not being successful because I didn't have an accolade, doesn't, in your mind, it doesn't matter that you've done all these preps, what you've done to get to stage multiple times and actually be able to get through that reverse out post show, going back into a growth phase, going back into a prep. And I finally felt, and you'll love this, they called out my name, and I literally, it's quite emotive thinking about it. I collapsed on the floor, like I stacked it on the floor, and they were like, "You can see this means a lot to the competitor," crying, crying. All that pain, all that self-sabotage, that self-doubt, I was seen because I'd won a show. Now, that's again, I'm like, do I talk about it in that way? Because it's not me saying, guys, that you need to win a show to validate this journey. If you listen to the podcast, you'll know that. But for me, I needed to be seen in that way. However, John, and this is where we can get stuck into. So then, what's your success? Do you have to win every show? If you don't win a show, are you a failure? And my second show on that season, I came second. The best lesson I believe as a competitive bodybuilder for myself, because I realized winning is not guaranteed. I have to work relentlessly, continuously, year after year, year after year, because sometimes there's going to be other people on stage that the judge's preference is, someone that's going to place above you. But that was great because I feel if I'd, won every show that season, that could have led to a tricky path and a warped perception of what success is in the bodybuilding space.
And I think that's very much so right, is that the goal is never to get the medal. The goal is to remind you that you did something great, right? And I think no matter if you walk away from a medal or not, it's reminding yourself that you gave it your best. Now, the only person that can truly tell you if you gave 100% effort and you gave it your best is yourself. No one, I could have called you up all those years ago and said, Sarah, did you, when you got second, did you give it? And you were like, yeah, I gave it my absolute best. And in your head, you're like, yeah, I probably gave it 80%. I probably got it got first if I did this, 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 right? Now that's not a bad thing. But what it comes down to is what you do after that. And I always think no matter whether you get an award, you win, whatever those things are, it's still life. Life will still move on,
Yeah.
right? And it's what you do after that. That's what matters. Does it give you more inspiration to go back fighting for more? Does it think, do you know what? I'm actually going to view myself differently because, yeah, I did. And from what I can gather, when you did win that award and you kind of collapsed and was in that was it was a release, right?
Yes.
You put so much pressure on yourself. It was your first ever thing. You were like, oh my God, this is it. Like so much pressure. And yeah, your body was like, oh,
It
oh, okay, literally the life out of me.
wild. Wild. Yeah. Yeah. It's quite hard to attain in words, as it were, because it was like, and we can label bodybuilding as suffering that we choose. We choose to do this, guys.
Mhm.
That's what I preach, as it were, because it is always a choice, and it's a privilege to do this. But you do go through periods of time as a competitor where it feels like you are suffering. For me personally, it was always, doing a season, not getting placings. I'm the one who's got to show up and get through this time. Yes, I have a coach and I have people around me, but they're not there when I'm in a dark room sobbing my heart out because I'm not good enough. They're not there when I'm walking to the gym with a song comes on, I'm crying and crying and crying, but I still do it. I still show up. And like you said there, such gold advice. Every time I step on stage, you could phone me and say, how much did you give to that, Sarah? And I could go 100%. Like, and we're extreme personalities in the space, guys. If you're listening and you understand, a lot of the time it feels like life or death. I'm just going to play it straight. It does. Because you step on that stage, if you've done everything in your power, it can quite literally feel like life or death. But over the years, what I've realized is exactly what you summarized. When I step on stage and I've come fourth, fifth, whatever, after coming first multiple times, I've always come off the stage and gone, that was my time. That was my time. And I also got to this point where it was like, I'm I'm driven to win, but there's so much more to this than that. And you won't ever catch me getting a place in, even if I feel like, maybe the judging was a little bit or whatever we can put in our minds, right?
Mm.
You never catch me bad mouthing it. You have that sportsmanship, you have that respect for yourself, and I have given 100%. And I can stand there on that stage and go, this is me. This is my stage. This is my time. And it's truly a gift when you see it like that. But it takes sometimes the sort of, I guess, trauma to come through to go, it's really not that deep, and that's not a saying flippantly, but it's not. If you've done everything you can, the judge's decision on the day is the judge's decision on the day. It literally is.
And also to know that you're there, right? It's it's reminding yourself of the appreciation of the gratitude of you put yourself there.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, you were saying that you were going to give up a week before. You didn't. You showed up.
mm.
So whether the judge gives you an award or not, that's on them. That's on who you're competing against. But really, you showed up, and that week ago version of you, you made that person proud
Yeah.
because you didn't give up. And that's what it all comes down to. Because it's like if you win the award, you get the first, then what? Right?
Mm,
Then
mm.
what? It changes the way you view it. Now we all want to strive because you're striving to get towards awards, right? You're playing football, you're wanting to get the medal, all these side of things. But the biggest part you've got to realize is that why is it that I want it? Like I'm not bothered about anyone else. Why is it that you want the award?
Mm.
And like Sarah mentioned, she wanted to feel seen,
Yeah.
right? Which is also an area of like, okay, that's an insecurity in myself. And if I work on that, I'm not bothered if I come fifth. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's powerful because then, like we mentioned about energy, the way you show up after that first, all the others, you were like, it doesn't matter what that person gives me
Mm.
because I've realized what I needed. I needed to feel seen. The only person in that whole theater arena that needed to feel seen in that moment was myself. And if I didn't give myself enough acknowledgement through that period of time, that's when it's going to unfold. And I think the more you appreciate where you've come and what you've done and remind it for you, not for anyone else. Your journey is your journey. Like we said, you know how much effort you've put in. You know if you've given it your all or not. That's only up to you. You could say, John, I gave it 80%, and you'd be like, nah, I actually gave 60, but John don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that's how you'll start sabotaging yourself. That's how you'll start re rewording certain situations in your life where you won't actually understand what you need to do moving forward. And that's the changes that you need to make.
Mm.
And this is for, those listening, watching. The biggest part to realize is that you are all here to play a part in your life. As they say, you are, as I like to say, you are the writer in your story. You're not the editor.
Mm.
But we spend so much time editing everyone else's for how we need to show up in their life, we completely forget to write ours. And that's sad, but it's also a reminder to be like, what about if you did put all that effort into writing yours? How much better would you show up in everyone else's books? So much better because you know who you are, you know how you want to show up. And that's what is important. That is also a reminder to everyone. Is like, when was the last time you wrote for you? When was the last time you put a message to yourself for you? Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that as well plays a part in the journey of being a competitive bodybuilder because if you do have that fourth or fifth place and you've got that sense of achievement for this wasn't my day, I haven't won. However, it was my day for so many other reasons. But what it does, guys, and I promise you this because I'm living proof of this, it fuels you to get through that really tricky time, for a lot of us as you reverse out and you let go of being lean, you're looking at your growth phase, but you go, okay, so I did 100%. That wasn't good enough for an accolade. That wasn't good enough on the day for what the judges awarded. Okay, so what do I do here? I get better, I improve, and you're fueled by it rather than fueled by I'm not good enough in a negative way. And then it's like, and I'm sure you can, visualize this in your own mind as well, John, where you start to gain body fat, you start to go in an off season, and if it's fueled by negativity that you're not good enough, that you're never going to be good enough, it then can skew your body image, how you train, how you socialize as a human being, how you are with your partner, your close relationships, because you're hung up on that one day of not getting an award. Whereas, guys, that's fuel. If you're going to pursue this, there's nothing. I don't feel there's anything wrong, depending on the mindset you're in, to go, I wasn't good enough to get that accolade. I'm gonna work. It's a very
That's
different
it.
way. Yeah.
That's it. But and that's the biggest thing, right? Is how you want to again show up.
Mm, mm,
And do you want to let that define you, or do you want that to remind you of what you can improve on? Right? Life is that's the biggest thing, right? There's two things in life that you know, that we learn is basically a blessing or a lesson, right? And no matter whatever you are in your life, even when you go through some really tough times, the biggest thing is that it's a blessing or it is a lesson. And even when you experience it, and I'm sure, Sarah, you've had many of that with your, surgeries and that you've had to go through with that as well, with a journey that you think, I'm great, I'm strong, I'm boom, this happens, right? But what it does is it reminds you and says, actually, okay, this is not failure, this is not destruction, this is a redirection.
mm,
And if this is a redirection, this is going to allow me to experience a part of my life that I've not tapped into before. And like you were saying, is using it as fuel. It's like how you look at fear, right? There's two ways to look at fear. You can, face everything and rise, or fear everything and run. And when we view something, and if we didn't get if we put such high expectation on where we thought we would be,
mm,
we are then basically gonna fear everything and run, and we're
mm,
not gonna know what to do. And then, like you said, when you are going into that refeed state of actually like replenishing your body, what are you actually going to replenish it with? Because of how you're viewing that moment. But again, it puts you back in the past. Whereas if you face everything and rise, you are living way more in the present, working towards your next target, your next goal, your next understanding of where you would like to be. And that's important to acknowledge as well when we are understanding our mind, because it's all behavior, it's all patterns.
mm,
And
mm.
if we don't catch that pattern, we're just going to keep repeating that pattern over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and that's where the self-sabotage cycle comes in. It's come to my mind as well, John, with, not that we're going into the realms of food disorders as such, but in the bodybuilding space, the cycles of where people can sort of overeat or binge and then go into a restriction cycle where it's like, I've done this, so I need to claw it back. And the thing is, this is going to appeal to, this is general population as well. This isn't just bodybuilding, right? And this is why, it's often a grey area, John, because people don't want to talk about the elephant, as you gave an example earlier, the elephant in the room of the acknowledgement to the cycles happening. How do we start to break them, redefine them, and I don't want to say get better because if you're right here, right now, it's like actually, you're at that acknowledgement stage of this happening, or maybe you're not even there yet. We become clever, we can do these things in secret. We absolutely can. And I feel like that's come to my mind there where you're talking about, you know, when you do something, whether it's the overeating or something in life or something that you deem as, I wish I didn't do that. I want to claw it back. I want to do something to, with the binge restrict cycle. That's a good analogy there because it's like, oh, I'll claw it back. I did it, but I can make it better. Then you do it again. Then you did it, made it better. Then you do it again. When we look at that, the five A's and the steps there, John, when it's around, if there's an action you're taking, like with the overeating, I try to frame it in the direction of it's happened, the next day or the rest of that day. We go back to your normal fundamentals. We go back to your normal plan and not try to make up for doing something that you deem as negative, as wrong, as bad. I know that's a sort of food example, but would you agree with that?
No, totally. Funnily enough, this morning I did a masterclass for a lot of in a men's group I'm in, and it's mainly an American audience, and it's Thanksgiving. So
Oh,
I shared a whole talk about Thanksgiving. You're probably gonna be eating too much, drinking too much. So yeah, you're gonna be overeating in that moment. But what do you do after it? And I learned from Tarrant, an incredible mentor a few years ago, and he was like, just remember, it's not who you are, it's just what you did. And that is an incredible reset because then you can ask yourself, by doing what I'm doing now, what do I gain by staying where I'm at? And the reason, if we look at why do we sabotage, is because it's fear of success or fear of failure. I love playing tennis, and we could use tennis as an analogy. Um, you've probably seen people tank it, right? There's a word called tanking, which is basically when there's two great players, one guy is not doing as very well, or a girl not doing very well, and they just tank it. They just don't care. They'll hit the net all the time, and they just hit hit it out. And it's called tanking, which is basically they want to. They are so afraid of failing, they will f up their round and be like, do you know what? I can't come back, so I'm just going to hit it into the audience. I'm just going to bring fun into it. And what they do is the reason they call it tanking is because they are basically protecting their identity. Because if you saw someone just being like really funny and just doing it, you'd be like, they're just not having a good day, right?
yeah.
But actually, they're really struggling. They're
Mm.
like, this person can really beat me. And what they do is their body goes into safety, all right? Because safety, what does that provide us? That provides us predictability. And that's where self-sabotage comes in, right? We overeat and then we go back and then that we just justify. And why do we justify? It allows us to justify to know that, oh, I feel safe if I do that and I can reset. I can reset. But then that reset becomes fundamentally predictable.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Okay. So when you are tanking, and again, people may do this in bodybuilding,
Mhm.
right? They do great and then they're just like tanking and be like, nah, I've got no way, nowhere near this competition. I'm just going to tank it. Whereas actually they could have had a really good chance,
Mm.
but they're going to tank it. And what that does is then you don't judge them on who they are. You just think, oh, they're just having a bad day. So now their identity is being feel safe. And like
Mm.
we said, safety is predictable. So if they can create predictability, they're not being, well, they just got thrashed playing tennis against that person. No, they just, they was just not having a good day. And then they don't talk about it, which means the fear of failure for that player is not there anymore.
Mm.
And they've strategically, because tennis is such a mental game, strategically, they've been able to do it in a way that doesn't affect their identity, right? Whereas if they did bloody try hard and did do it and still lost, now they've failed. Okay. And that's a big shift and a big understanding if we look at that in the grand scheme of life. How we do everything is how we do anything, right?
Mm.
As I love the saying, right? Which basically means how you do everything is how you do everything. Is the way you show up in your meal prep is the way you're going to show up on stage. The way you show up in, you know, taking care of yourself is the way you're showing up at work.
Mm.
So the way you show up in looking after yourself is the way you're going to be showing up to look after others. So if you think that you've been pissed off with your partner or these sort of things in relationships, whether that's friends or anything, look at yourself, right? Because more times than not, there's an area that you've been avoiding and you're going to put that avoidance onto someone else. Whereas let's take that moment to sit with it. Like I said, name it, be confronting with yourself, because that will give you so much more peace when having conversations with others. And also, building your relationships up is important, especially when you're doing a major competition or working towards it, right? Because you want to feel seen, heard, and understood, right? But if you are belittling them because you're feeling rubbish, then that needs to be reworded, because again, you're going to go back to what's familiar, which means when they think, say, partner in an example, oh no, they're doing another prep. Great, right? Right? They're
Yeah.
going to be thinking that way. And why is it? Because it's familiar. They know what last year was like. They know what 5 months ago was like. Now, what does that mean? That means that it's predictable, which means they're now in a safety and they're going to be like, I'm not going to speak this way because I know it's just going to disrupt them, make them annoyed. But actually, now your communication is not clear because you're now both going into a situation fearing what is going to happen. Because you're like, I don't want to say this because they may get pissed off. But actually, I know I need to say this because I want to break the pattern. And more times than not, I'm sure that you, as you've done many preps and many competitions, you've gone in and said, okay, I want to do something different, right? So if your partner's going to do the same, it's the same, Matt, right? If your partner's going to do the same thing
Mm.
and they're going to come into the situation, they're going to be the same version, you can't change, because then what does that do? That creates safety. Then you go back to it. Oh, I can shout at him. I can be annoyed at him. He knows I'm going through something,
Yeah.
right? He knows what it's like.
Yeah.
But that means that you are now replaying that version of yourself. So when I ask you and say, did you put your effort in? You're like, yeah, did you? It's not how you stood up on stage. It was all the 12 weeks, the 16 weeks, the 18 weeks, the 6 months that you did leading up to it. And that's what's important. And when we think about, you know, again, self-sabotage is, again, the patterns we always hear is just like, A, will quit when it gets hard. Okay. But also the thing is like I'll do it when I feel ready. I'll improve when I'm ready. And you've really got to ask yourself and think, well, how are you going to be ready if you keep sabotaging yourself? Right? If you eliminated that word, and to be honest, the biggest thing is like imposter syndrome. I never knew that word until I became a coach 7 years ago. Right?
And you were
I never
probably an
knew the word.
imposter.
Right. And then I was like, I don't know what an imposter is. And then I'm like,
I'm
doing
one.
this coaching one, and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like an imposter. What am I going to do? And I love Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson just turns around and says, well, like, you're supposed to be an imposter because you're in an environment that you've never been before,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Which means when you go through prep and you want to improve, it should be uncomfortable. You should feel like you're sabotaging, but that is not bad. It's now awareness. Now is your ability to change, rather than think, ah, we're going to do the same cycle again because this happened last year and I ended up doing this. So, wait, in 2 weeks, this is going to happen again.
Mhm.
That doesn't need to be. That doesn't need to be the story.
Mhm.
And that's where, I go on about energy, but it is because it's state. If you don't change your state in that moment, you are going to bring that version of yourself to the stage, to life, to work, to the gym. How you walk into the gym is how you walk out of the gym. I can guarantee you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you just lift some stuff in the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, because it is so important, right? You need to make sure that you reset.
Mhm.
But if you don't acknowledge that reset, and again ask yourself, what am I going to gain by staying? What am I doing? Like where I'm at, then you start having that awareness of questioning your things.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's how you're able to then create those changes as well. From my perspective, and hopefully getting a better understanding listening to this, just think of a moment in your life where you haven't been showing up at your best and you have been sabotaging yourself, and then ask yourself and think, okay, what am I actually protecting? Because there's something you're afraid of. And it will come down to fear of success or the fear of failure. And just view it. It could be so small. It could be so small, you know? It could be, oh my God, I'm doing my first comp and I've told all my friends and now I'm going to feel really bad, right? It's not even about the judges, but the way you show up and the way you bring that version of yourself to the stage, you're basically manifesting that way, and that's what's important to catch. It's okay to acknowledge it. It's okay to have those thoughts because they're thoughts, but they do not need to be real. They only become real when you start associating meaning to them. And then you put your emotion to it and you put more meaning to it. Because if it was just a thought that went past, like elephants, we haven't brought to it. I bet you guys have all forgotten about it. You haven't given meaning to the elephants, right? It may have drugged up a little bit of emotion, but that's it. You've forgotten about it. You're thinking about how your mind is working. But we associated a thought there and you didn't give it meaning, which means when you have those negative thoughts, when those moments of feeling like an imposter, feeling self-sabotage, right? Especially in today's day and age, like, it's cold, it's windy, it's all this sort of stuff, right? You've got the whole sad, but it is important to acknowledge it. And if you don't sit there and actually hit that feedback and be like, oh, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I feel like there's elements there where you're talking about, relationships and people that we engage with. I do believe that, if the people around you, you want them to invest in your journey, if they're non-bodybuilders, as we would maybe frame it, I truly believe that the way we talk about and associate our choice to bodybuild, the way we put it out on social media, the way we speak to our people in real life, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like how you framed it, right? You're not, and when you framed it, I was like, what he means is he's not positive like rainbows and lights and unicorns everywhere, guys. It's, a positive way of thinking, framing, reframing, etc. I call it the higher frequency, and you've spoken about frequency. Now, and put this in your mind, guys. If your partner was doing something and all they did was say, I don't like it. I don't like, going to the gym. I hate doing this food prep. Bodybuilding's a load of shit. The judges, they didn't favor me. It's all bent. The politics that, okay, these things happen. Some days food prep feels shit to do. Sometimes there's politics in bodybuilding. Da 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 da. However, if this is your dialogue externally to those around you, including social media, are people going to want to buy into this? Like, think about this, guys. If this was someone in your life doing a job they hate or whatever it is, so your perception of it to other people, it does count if you're looking at the people around you and what people are going to actually view your choice as. Whereas, I would say bodybuilding for me is my passion. You will never hear me slagging off bodybuilding, but I will be absolutely transparent with this is hard, this is getting savage, da 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 da. Da. But that's important because it's other people's perception. Yeah, okay, we can say that doesn't matter in some respects, or social media. It's my social media. If I want to say I hate it, I can say I hate it. Fine. However, when you externalize, it's also part of what's in here because you're saying it, guys. And you can get in these sort of warped, places, can't you, John? Where it's like you're saying these things to build things on social media or have a go at your other half because they've pissed you off, or I'm in prep so I can say these things. But these are all in tandem, even though one's external, one's internal. You know what I mean?
Well, if you really look at it, the self-talk that we internalize is providing you silence. Like, is providing you that place to be at ease with yourself because you think that's familiar and you're just used to it. Which means when the world gets loud, you then go internal, and that's what we then process. The issue with that is Self-talk doesn't say it's just negative self-talk, right? It's self-talk, what you are telling yourself, which means there's many people out there when they are silent, when they are peaceful, they are telling themselves some incredible things. Why should you be any different?
Mm.
Oh yeah, because the X works. No. Why should you be any different? They're human, you're human. When we are a baby, we are not being told, we are not, as I got told years ago, you are not stamped with a barcode that says you are not good enough,
Yeah,
you are not loved, right? We've internalized that and we've created it through our own life, through our own experiences. Okay. But that doesn't mean that has to change. What it means is for you to be aware, like you've mentioned, what you are saying to others. If that's what you're saying to others, what are you saying to yourself?
absolutely.
Because you're probably sugarcoating a little bit when you say it to others, right? You're keeping it, PG.
Yeah.
So what is that internal battle? And I know we put on there as well with mentioning about sad and the seasons changing and everything. Well, what happens when it is cold, right? We haven't got the sun. Well, when it's sunny, what do we say? We sometimes gives ourselves a little bit more positivity, right? We give ourselves a little bit more uplift. The energy, I feel better. I'm ready to go out. Oh, it's raining now. I don't want to go for a
It's the
walk,
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
right? But all it's doing is it's making you aware how quick our emotions change,
Mm.
right? What is sad, right? Seasonal affective disorder, right? Which is basically what it's doing is saying when the seasons change, can we adapt or do we not adapt? That's it.
I like
The
that.
people who adapt
Mm.
are the ones who are able to overcome the winter. Da, 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 da. Those that don't and want to chase the sun, as they say, if you're chasing the sun all the time, you're not adapting, you're avoiding, right? So when we do think, when we're coming up to, we're in winter now, it's getting colder, that sort of things. The biggest thing you've got to ask yourself is, okay, well, what am I avoiding?
Mm. Mm.
Because all the things I would be doing, what am I now not doing? And what have I replaced it with? Have I replaced it with the internal dialogue of this, this, this? And this is where it's crazy, right? Like I I'm a summer baby, right? Born in August. So I'm a summer baby. So I love the summer, right? I love the long days, all that sort of stuff. But I truly appreciate the winter. And do you know why? Because it helps me get my evening routine to the T.
Absolutely.
Because by 4, it's getting dark now. By 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, I'm ready to start winding down, have my dinner, get ready, do some journaling, do some bit of reading, maybe watch some Netflix, and then go to bed. So by 9, 10 o'clock, I'm bed.
Yeah.
When it's 9, 10 light, I'm like, oh, I could do some work, could do
I know.
this,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff, right? But that's all down to a decision. That's all down to a choice.
Mm.
And I think just to quickly go on about me with positivity, because I think it's important, is my perception of the way. So I had a really tough moment a few months ago where people kept on saying to me, John, you're so positive, you're so positive. And the way I was framing it was actually making me feel rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that I was hearing the word positivity, and I'm like, yeah, but my secret is I'm not positive. But what they were actually meaning, and I learned this enough when I actually then started asking people, okay, what's making you feel that I'm really, really positive? They're like, it's just your positive attitude. The attitude you have when you hit rock, when you have tough moments, the way you bounce back, the way you adapt is incredible. That's why it's positive. And that made me realize that the way you perceive and the perspective you have on certain things, the minute that shifts, everything can change. And I can guarantee you, when I shifted it and I looked at it and I was like, "Wait, hang on a minute. People don't want, people don't like me or view me because I'm so positive. They view me by the positive attitude that I have about life, which then uplifts them. So, but all they say, because they're needing uplift, they're like what they don't know how to articulate it. They just say, "Wow, you're so positive,"
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, I'm not. How do they know that?
It's me.
This is it, right? It's just me being me. And then I feel I'm inauthentic in that place because I'm like, but I'm not positive all the time. But
Mm,
actually, the way I view life and the energy that I bring and the vibrancy and the charisma, that's what's important. So when we go into working through life and we're understanding, going through the seasons, right? Going through and understanding and acknowledging your self talk, take those moments and sit with it because your perception of something may be wrong. Like what happened with me, right? It's not they were saying anything bad, but the way I was internalizing it was bad because I was like sabotaging myself and thinking, "What? This is me. I'm not this person. I'm not this. Okay, I'll be miserable." And then they won't keep saying I'm positive,
mm,
right?
mm, mm, mm.
And then these things change. So it's just I can't emphasize it enough how important get taking that time for you, and that's why when you think about self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, um, and yeah, self-talk. What do they all start with, right? They all start with self, which means what does that mean? That means that the only way we can truly improve those areas is to ask ourselves what we need.
Mm, mm.
Because when you are in a tough time, someone says, "What do you need?" And you say, "I don't need anything. I'm okay. I don't know." The reason we say I don't know is because we've never asked ourselves the question.
Yeah.
And then we're worried about the judgment what that's the person's going to say. Okay.
Mm.
Like Sarah standing up and getting her first one. I just wanted to feel seen, right? Imagine if you could ask everyone standing up, everyone who got the award, everyone who's got first, they all were in a room and you asked them and said, when that first medal got given to you, what did you want from it? It wasn't, I wanted the medal. I guarantee you there will be a slight insecurity or there would be a slight reason that made them feel enough, loved for them to get that award.
Mm.
Which means if you're able to work on those areas prior to the result, you going up on stage and you doing that dance, you are gonna love it.
Yeah, I can't believe we've sort of stumbled across that so far into my competitive journey that that was actually what I was looking for. I thought it was, you know, and this is where I say, guys, mindset is an evolution. It's there's so much to come because I'd always framed it as it needed to be worth it. If I did, and this is a bit of added context, I needed to understand if I can't be competitive, maybe this isn't the right path for me because I hadn't won and I hadn't won and I hadn't won. If I can win, oh, okay, it's worth it. Now I realize that I did. I just wanted to be seen and a nice, personal anecdotal story as well, working with a client with the SAD syndrome that you've touched on and the frame in there. And now I've realized why it's worked how it has because of you, John. But this year is the first year that SAD syndrome hasn't been on the peripheral for this client. And the last 2 years, we've been working together for a multitude of years. As soon as we get to this point, and the winter comes, the darker, 3, 4 o'clock, and it's colder, etc. There's always been a we need to prep for SAD syndrome, and I always wanted to try and dig into it and think I'm sure there's more to this sad syndrome, as it were. Is there more mindset work we can do? She's in a much happier place in her life now, very successful season, etc., etc. And there's been no mention of sad syndrome yet. So I believe what you've said there is gold. That there was a fear of, okay, well it's November now. It's getting colder now. I've got that sad syndrome back, but I don't think she's clocked it because I haven't said
But
anything. I
this is the thing, right?
yeah.
It provides safety because it's predictability, remember?
Yeah.
We When things feel predictable, we will always fall back to that because it's safe. Like I know I relate to tennis because I love tennis. Is the sport I love. But whenever I'm against an opponent who's playing me at my weakness, I will go back to what's familiar. So okay, put me on my backhand all the time, right? I'm gonna be slicing and I'm gonna play. I'm gonna tank it a little bit to get me some wins,
Yeah.
right? To play it. I'm not gonna keep trying to do my backhand because I know it's not my strength. So I'm gonna find that weakness and I'm gonna play around and get him to move around, or
Mm,
the opponent that I'm playing. But all that's done is that's reminded me of like, wow, there's a weakness here. Now, if I leave that, every time I play against someone and they play it to there, I'm always going to be in a challenged situation. So, very much so. If I always say, oh, November's coming up, October's coming up, oh,
Yeah.
we're always going to be thinking, right, I need to be aware. Aware of what? Well, the weather's changing, the changes.
You hear
What
it all
happens in
the
spring?
time.
Oh, nothing. What
It,
happens in summer? It's like SAD isn't winter affective disorder. It's seasons, which means every single season we have a challenge, but everyone relates to that concept as winter. No, that's the toughest month if you think I don't like the cold. And all I would say to you, everyone, all I would say, if you want the best tip, when you're in the winter, don't turn the shower up hotter, right? I know you ladies, you want to turn it out hotter and hotter and hotter so you can't
Maybe.
even see the mirror. But the problem is, what you are doing is you are exposing yourself to now more difference to what it is outside the shower.
Mm,
So
mm,
you are making it harder for yourself to then wrap up more when you go outside, right? Someone who goes in the sauna a lot and then goes and does like, condition therapy where they're basically just jumping in,
yeah.
exposure therapy, that sort of stuff, right? Contrast therapy. There you go. Get the word out. When you do it hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, someone who's never done that before is freaking freezing, right? Someone who's done it like Wim Hof, it needs to be lower, lower, lower. I was chatting to my mate, Ice Bath Harry. I don't know if you follow me. He's a hilarious guy, but and he was like, "Oh, I can't go in the sea. It's too hot. Like it's too hot. My because his ice bath is so cold.
Oh,
There's so much difference, right?
yeah.
But he was like, oh, I couldn't even get in one in day one. I had it to be like 15 degrees. Whereas
Mm,
now he gets in like 1 degree.
mm,
But because of that exposure. So if you always tell yourself how you view the winter is how you're going to view every winter, sorry, that's the story you're writing. And that's the internal dialogue. So if you tell yourself about how you prep each time and you don't do something differently, how you show up on stage, if you don't change the moves, change your, as I call it, dance, then you're going to be replacing the same story every single year.
mm, mm.
And that's how we want to improve.
I like that.
And also to understand ourselves. We're all learning about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. It's seasonal for bodybuilding, seasonal for weather, because also, there's adaptations we can make if we acknowledge these, we can work on a mindset around the framing, but it's like, when it does get to the winter months, you can use the light therapy, there's different things you could do, but also don't be scared to lean into things. I think this would be a good way to sort of finalize our pod today. Don't be scared to lean into things that make you feel good just because you're a hardcore bodybuilder. So, if, like John said, in the winter months, that you're like, actually, I could get a bit more cozy in the evening. Maybe I could do more of my expenditure early on while it's lighter. Maybe I could have some more time recovering. Maybe I could have more time doing journaling. There's often the season sort of finishes mid-December, so there's going to be a period of time where you're not competing. You're going to be recovering off the back of your season, maybe, or if you're in off season, use this time to think, actually, how could I compliment myself and add a bit of self-care? Oh God, guys, not the self-care. We're not allowed to, but we are. And I like to challenge my own narrative with this because I'm talking from experience, right? I'm always like, well, there's more to do, there's more to do. I can be better, I can be better. Sometimes, guys, you can be better if you stop, if you allow yourself to pour back into your mind, your physique, and allow them to work more in tandem to then evolve as a whole person, as a competitor as well. And that's a really nice challenge in the narrative of this time of year that can complement if you do feel you sort of suffer with SAD syndrome, as it were. Well, how can we challenge this narrative? How can I do something I haven't done before? And that might be uncomfortable. Rest. Oh my God.
This is it, right? But it's also putting the body in a place that it is rest. And again, we'll put that fear in, right? We'll
Yes.
add in a place of this doesn't feel right because I'm meant to be productive, but you've trained yourself to be that version, right? Burnout only accounts when you officially burn out because you've overdone it over the time. But burnout didn't happen because, yep, I hit burnout on the 27th of November, right? You hit burnout probably 6 months prior to that. You
Absolutely.
just never saw the signs because you never allowed yourself to rest and take that break. And that's what's important when we go into the awareness, when we go into the understanding is, I don't know who said this quote, but it's like what you're not changing, you're choosing, right? And very much so. So think about it. What you are not changing in the winter months, you are choosing to experience every single winter and every single prep, every single comp. So just acknowledge that, embrace the change because it is scary. It is, what do I do? I don't know what to do. But you do have an opportunity to create change
Mm.
in this very moment. On this very podcast, you can make that decision. It comes down to a decision, it comes down to a choice.
I'd say that, sometimes there'd be a pivotal thing on a podcast, well, like what you've just said, and I say, guys, if you're listening, you could make a change literally right now. You can populate a new neural pathway and it can, electrify your life. And don't be scared as well, what we've touched on, for life to be good for consecutive days on end. Whoa, I'm waking up, I'm feeling good, I'm excited for life. We don't have to be sort of, and a term in the bodybuilding world, John, is going to war. We don't have to be going to war every day with ourselves. You're allowed to experience joy in life. You're allowed to really thrive as a bodybuilder and just want to do this. And what a way to sort of wrap up today there, John, because a reminder to everyone that we've all got work to do, but that's the joy of exploration. Get excited about it, and yeah, I love it, and speaking with you just solidifies so many things in my own mind that I know will resonate with a lot of people. And I feel like we have to do this again in 2026. We cannot leave it 3 years. It's
I, I
too
I
long.
can't even believe it's been 3 years.
I know.
It's
When I worked out, I was like,
time's gone.
3 years. What?
Yeah, I got that. I got a little post on Facebook today, and it was like 4 years ago. Someone I met on a masterclass, he literally was like, "John, like you just had a quote when you spoke. I just wanted to use it. Can I go take it to a school and speak? I'm doing a talk." And like on my 4 years ago, there's a picture of me on this board, like with all these kids, and it's there, and I'm like, "Wow." Like that was 4 years ago. That felt like a year ago. So it really does show change, everything like that. But also, just like you've said, is you get to make that decision, right? The choice is now. Make it, take it, break it, whatever you want to do, but it is entirely up to you. And Sarah, it's been an absolute privilege. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Great connecting as always. And hopefully, those who are viewers are enjoying it, can take something from it, um, and yeah, and lead life with more positive intent. There we go.
For sure. Now, if anyone wanted to speak to you about what you do, so the mental fitness guide, your services as it were, and working with people, coaching people, if someone has listened and thought, actually maybe you're someone that they want to work with, reach out to, or maybe float a question from something we've spoken about today, is the best place Instagram or Facebook, or how would you like people to contact you?
Yeah, I'd probably say Instagram, regulate with John,
I'll put that
because
in.
again, I'm here to regulate. So yeah, it's in there. Best possible place. Just drop me there and just all I would say is, as I do get lots of messages, that sort of stuff, Facebook just gets overwhelming. So I always like to say, just give me a little prompt of where you found. So it's like, hey, I've jumped on the Beyond Condition podcast, just listened, and then asked. Just then I can build that
None.
understanding of where you're at. And then, yeah, feel free to drop a message. Um, and yeah, happy to help.
Thank you, regulator.
You are very welcome. You're
Say,
very welcome.
that's it. Oh, Matt, do you want to say hello?
Oh, it's Matt here.
Matt, come on. This is the regulator's on the screen. He
The
already loves
regulator.
you. He loves
Hello.
you. He loves you, John.
Hey, Matt.
Live on the podcast.
Live on the podcast. We get him on.
Yes. I do love you. I think you're ace. I think you're just vibes, absolute vibe.
Appreciate it, man. I loving the jumper, man.
Yeah, look, jungle is
Good
massive.
old what is it? Jungle is
Jungle is-
massive. Love it.
It's for when we go raving.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's last time I heard Jungle is massive is Raven.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I feel like you would have been upset if you didn't get Serlo. So there we go.
Yes,
No,
definitely.
appreciate it. Hope you're well, Matt. And yeah, it's great to see your smiley face too.
Namaste. Oh.
Have a good one.
Namaste. There you go. There
See
you
you
go.
See
later.
you later.
Absolute privilege. Thank you all.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.